Hello. For my final project, I chose to interview my friend Tom Townsen. I've known Tom for about 8 years and we've been really good friends. I'm really excited to show you my video and I hope you enjoy. This first part will be him introducing himself and sharing a little bit about his personality.
Yeah, my name is Tom Townsen. I was born in Santa Monica, California, September 22nd, 1948. For you math whizzes, that makes me 73. Um, I grew up in Southern California and I spent my first probably 12 years in that particular area. Uh, Went to school there, elementary school, and played Little League Baseball, played every sport there was. I live in Prescott, Arizona now, kind of like the crazy uncle, adopted uncle that all you kids should have. Okay. But I played every sport there was to play. I still played up until a few years ago. But growing up in South Bay in California at that time was a great place to grow up. I've still got friends that I went to elementary school that I am still in contact with, which says a lot about growing up in that time and place. Grew up, like I said, surfing, playing baseball, football, in an area where you could do what you wanted. You came home when the streetlights came on. You would be up at the crack of dawn, out with your buddies. But those days are long gone. Now you have everything that at your fingertip. I'm the oldest. I'm the last man standing. I was the oldest and the firstborn in my family. The whole family, aunts, uncles. I'm the oldest of all the cousins. I'm the oldest of all the grandkids, everything. So I'm the last man standing. And even the guys that I grew up with in elementary school that I hung out with for many, many years, they all passed away for various reasons. Remember, I grew up in the 60s, if you realize I was born in 48. But I do have friends that I went to elementary school with that I am in contact with through social media. I might be an old guy, but I'm pretty social media savvy. I pay attention to what goes on around me. I'm not afraid of change. So the thing I miss my friends. I mean, I really do. The guys that I grew up with, I mean, we all kind of drifted apart because, like, once again, growing up in the 60s, it was the hippie era and everybody experimented with the drugs. And I can tell you with a straight face, I never did. That's why I'm 72, 73, and I'm still kicking, and they are not. But I miss my friends. I don't necessarily miss my parents back then because I didn't see much of them, but I miss my friends. That would be the one thing I would say I missed. I don't miss my family much, just my buddies that I hung out with and the girls and stuff like that. But yeah, I miss my buddies. I miss my friends. The ones that I'll never get to see again. I lost my best friend, and I'll never see him again. And I would give anything, to be able to sit down like I'm doing right now, talking to Ben, and have that kind of conversation with him. Never going to happen. Growing up, when I did, where I did, I can't think of a thing I would have changed. Our families were all pretty close back then. I had my grandmother living close to me, one of them. Even though she was mean, she still lived close. I had aunts, cousins, uncles, my grandfather, they lived close by. My dad was there, my mom, all my buddies, all the parents all lived together back then. That's changed as well. Not necessarily for the worse or for the better. It's just changed. But you could always find if you needed something, you could contact your cousins. You could call your aunt. You could call your grandma. Those kind of things. I don't know if they get done the same way they used to get done.
Tom now starts talking about his middle life and talks about when he graduated high school and decided to leave. He became a machinist, and he talks about how his job was fulfilling for him.
When I first moved out, when you're at that age, when you're 18, 19, you think you know everything. And then you find out very quickly that you don't. But that being said, I moved out when I was 18, and I didn't miss my parents at all, not even a little bit, because we didn't get along. And I figured I was going to take the world by storm. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. However, I always worked hard. I never slacked on anything I ever did my entire life, and that includes working. I got married young. I had children young. But that didn't deter me, didn't stop me. Once I got out on my own and got my feet wet and got my feet on the ground and got working, I got working as a machinist primarily. Was what I started out as, because I learned that trade from my dad. Had a company that did that, and I had a couple of old grizzled veterans, you might want to call them, that took me under their wing and taught me. As I got more into my career, I wasn't really, never thought of myself as being a leader of men, or a people person, quite frankly. I trusted myself, and I had a very small circle. I'm still that way. I've always been extremely loyal. My guys that worked for me and with me all recognized that, and throughout my career, that continued along the same path. As I got a little bit older, I got into higher management positions, and higher and higher and higher and higher, to where I was like, there towards a little bit later, I was a general manager of a pretty large plant. And I only reported to 2 people, and we did $120 million a year. So that gives you an idea of my responsibilities. For me, I enjoyed going to work every day. I mean, there was times when, you feel like, I'm going to take the day out, but I couldn't, because I got other guys that are relying on me to keep them going for the day. That was my job. It's a production-based business. And I always, like I said, I always had their back. They always knew that. But I've never really considered age as an issue. You've heard the old comment, you're only as old as you feel. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm 17, sometimes I feel like I'm 72. I've had some health issues recently, but it's a state of mind. I work from home because I will tell you this, and you may not think so, but you can always use more money, no matter what. I don't necessarily need to work, but I was offered an opportunity to work from home Monday through Friday, and I do pretty good. Most of the comments that I get are people go, well, when I tell them how old I am or bring it up, they just kind of laugh, say, really, you sound like you're in your 30s. I said, well, mentally, maybe, but physically, no. Certain things happen as you get older. I've always been athletic, and then it's been about a year and a half ago, I started having some issues with my legs. Now, I've got what I had tumors on my spine. So we went in there, and they realized that I had tumors on my spine. So this was in, like I said, December, and in February of last year, I went in for the surgery. Surgery lasted about 4.5, 5 hours to remove the tumor. It was up in the middle part of my spine. If any of you guys are going to be doctors, I would tell you what part, but I can't remember. It was a certain height. So anyway, they got the tumors out. They were not cancerous. It was what they call schwannomas, which is more of a fatty type of cyst type of tumor, nothing major. So then I ended up in rehab for about 8 weeks, it was about 6 or 8 weeks after that, doing some other things to make sure that I could get through this okay. And then I'm still not quite over all that. I've got another issue with what they call the nerve block in my spine that has worked its way around my ribs to where I'm in pain constantly from the time I wake up till the time I go to bed. Now, most of the time it's maybe on a 1 to 10, it's maybe a 3, maybe a 2, sometimes a 6, but there are times when it's a 10, and they have not been able to correctly diagnose it or treat it yet. So that's the thing, that's up to current date. That is what we're working through now. I do have a thought process on that too, and my wife will say the same thing. Once I get through all this and they get this diagnosed correctly and they get the treatment down, I'll be able to go back to doing the things I like to do. I'll never be able to do them as well as I used to. I'm okay with that. You have to barter with yourself and lower your expectations on what you can do physically. Mentally, I'm just as sharp as I ever was.